Okay, so one of the dishes, or one of the goals I suppose we're making with dishes in the next couple of weeks is we're trying to bulk cook as many lunch meals that can be frozen, that reheat really well, but also have a consistency that can be eaten by our 10-month-old son, who's now eating some pretty decent solids. We've also been making some pies, like cottage pies and similar sort of consistency meals for dinners that we're able to then freeze portions for him so that we have meals for him all month long without needing to buy any of those sachets from the supermarket. So the meal that I'm making today is an Asian beef mince dish that can be served with white or brown rice. I prefer it with brown rice. My family prefers white rice. Either is fine. And it freezes really well, it defrosts really well, and it tastes delicious. All right, so the first thing I did was put the rice on, and that's just cooking whilst I prep the vegetables. So one way that we make this a bulkier meal is we add quite a lot of vegetables into it, but because it's a mince-based dish, I like to chop those vegetables to be quite small, tiny bite-sized pieces, and then that actually works really well for our 10-month-old son to be able to eat as well. So I would usually put a bit more zucchini than this in, but we only have 3 zucchinis at the moment. Next year, I would plan to grow some extra zucchini, and any that aren't storing well in the pantry, we will freeze dry. So this year, one of the purchases we will be making is to purchase a freeze dryer. And we're going to be hiring out the freeze dryer for anyone who wants to send produce in that needs to get freeze dried, because they are quite an expensive piece of equipment. So that'll help some people out as well. But at the moment we are still buying a fair amount of our vegetables from the supermarket. We did grow zucchini over this summer, but it just didn't do as well as previous years. Zucchinis require a lot of watering, and we moved to a property that is 100% tank water. So we had absolutely no rain for a really long time, and the dam was getting pretty empty. All of the water tanks were pretty empty. We were almost at the point of needing to do an order of getting some water delivered to the property, but it did start to rain just enough to get us through. But as a result, we lost pretty much our entire tomato crop, and also had very, very little zucchini growth. This year we grew 6 zucchini plants, and when I started growing them, we were thinking, oh, this is probably too many zucchinis, and we really don't need this many, but I know that our chickens really like zucchini, so I decided we would grow 6 in the hopes that we had enough for ourselves and enough to supplement some feed for our chickens. But we ended up with so little that we pretty much only had just enough for ourselves to eat fresh, nothing that we could store. And then they were growing in a really odd shape. They were going really hard and thick pretty quickly before reaching a good size, and they just weren't as good. So we'll try and do more watering this year, maybe set up drip systems for them. But this year we're probably going to be growing all of our zucchinis in garden beds at our property, and just see if we can set it up to a point where we only have to kind of visit once or twice a week, and see if we can get away with that. And then we'll grow probably a whole, maybe 2 or 3 garden beds of zucchinis, because again, we are going to freeze dry, and we're also going to try and supplement feed some of the feed for our chickens. And we do eat a lot of zucchini if given the opportunity. Goes in like green curry, goes in stir fries, we put it in spaghetti sauces. We will eat it on toast with garlic aioli and tomatoes. And it's really good for you. We'll put it in cakes, put it in pancakes. It's a very versatile vegetable. So we will be growing a lot more of it. So if I was able to choose, I probably would have doubled the amount of zucchini that was in this dish so that we could really make it on bulk. I am doubling the recipe. It does normally have 500 grams of beef, but I am going to do 1 kilo. And we are about to go through the process of ordering half a cow as well to get delivered to our house, and then we will do a big weekend of beef cooking and freezing. We'll have a bunch of cuts that'll be for slow cooking. That'll just probably go straight in the freezer, and then we will have other cuts that we want to marinate that we will possibly freeze in a marinade. Some dump and go recipes, so we'll have some beef rib cuts, so we'll do some barbecue sauce type recipes that can go into a Ziploc bag in the freezer to marinate, and then at the time when we decide that we want to have that meal for dinner, we will pop that just in the fridge the night before to start to thaw out, and then the morning that we're going to have it, we'll pop it into the slow cooker, so it's just a dump and go. We'll still need to cook the sides, like the potato, the carrot, to have with it, but it'll be much easier that way. And then one of my favorite dishes is beef bourguignon, and so we'll have some dump and go recipes for that as well, even though that's kind of if you want to do it properly, it's a 24-hour exercise. So we will put that on a video too. But I am going to try and make it so that it can be an easy dump and go, because it is one of my favorite recipes. And so we are a busy family. We have 2 kids under the age of 4. We have multiple chickens, we have ducks, we have multiple dogs. We will hopefully have a litter of puppies due in the next couple of months. We have a puppy that's in the background playing with one of my dogs in the lounge room. So we are very, very busy. And so that allows us to be able to have delicious meals, our favorite meals, but for it to be really easy to just chuck on at the beginning of the day, and any of our family members can do it as well, even those that don't cook as much. So now I'm moving on to the carrots. I'm also going to dice them quite tiny too, and I will cook them for longer, so I might put them in a different bowl, because I did notice that a few of the dishes we've had this week, like we had a minestrone soup and a cottage pie, a few of those dishes, the carrots weren't quite cooked enough for my son, who's 10 months old, to chew. He's only got 5 teeth, he's got a 6th one coming down at the moment. And they're all his front teeth, so he can't really chew very well, so they need to be pretty soft, the carrots. So I am going to cook the carrots first with the onions so that they do get really soft before I add in the meat or the zucchini. So I'm adding in 4 carrots for this. I'm going to add in 1.5 large onions as well. The recipe that this is inspired from does not have any of the vegetables in it, so it's more of a meat dish, whereas we like to put some vegetables in it, we like to bulk it up, and then this should make quite a number of meals, especially for my 10-month-old. We should be able to get quite a few portions that we can then just thaw out one at the beginning of the week that he can eat for a couple of days in a row. And we've just started growing our carrots for this season too. So we've just popped them in. I think Lucas has some in his vegetable garden. And then we've popped some in a pot in the front garden. And also in a vegetable bed at our property where we're trying to grow our next year's garlic. So quite a few spots. I'll see which ones come up best. We'll try and grow them at different times of the year. Like space them out, sorry, a few weeks apart, not different times of the year. And we are even considering setting up our polytunnel so that we can try and grow some when it gets a bit colder, just to be able to space them apart. And like my son really likes to snack on vegetables, so he really likes snacking on carrots, and we use carrots in a lot of roast meals over winter. We use them in our spaghetti sauces, we use them in pies, we use them in soups, so they're used quite frequently. They're obviously used in stir fries. So, and I've used 4 carrots just for this meal. So we will need to grow quite a number of carrots to be able to no longer need to get them from the supermarket. They aren't particularly expensive at the supermarket, but it's the whole point of you go to the supermarket only needing a $2 item and you walk out having spent $100 that we're trying to avoid. And we're trying to start one good habit at a time. So we started with eliminating going to the cafe every morning to get drive-through coffee and a sandwich for Ben for work. Now we do takeaway coffees in the morning from home, and we make our own bread in our bread machine, which we will be doing today as well, and slice that up and make up some ham, cheese and tomato sandwiches. When we get our beef order, we're going to do some Ploughman steak sandwiches and put them in the freezer so that they cook up really nice when they come out of the freezer and go straight into a sandwich press. So we started with that habit, and then Lucas eats a lot of sandwiches as well, so we were spending quite a lot of money every week on bread, like $15, $20 on bread, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you add it up over a year, it is quite a lot of money on bread. So we have just bought some bulk bread mix, flour mix from the supermarket, but we are now starting to look into different suppliers to get that on bulk, and we are making ourselves 2 to 3 loaves of bread a week. We try to get into a new habit of making bread every 2 days so that we have some fresh for Lucas to have his sandwiches, but then also on the weekend when we make the bread, we try to do Ben's sandwiches that go in the freezer for his work lunches. Just trying to dice this up quite fine because that will also be eaten by our baby. So the next habit that we kind of tried to tackle was we were in the habit of, we travel for work at least once a week, where we're driving about 2 hours to go to where we are and back again. And we did it just yesterday, and we were in the habit of buying takeaway food when we came back in the morning. When we came back for dinner. And we were spending just way too much money on takeaway food. So we were trying to get in the habit of spending less money on takeaway foods for dinners. So we started meal prepping, where we could make a month's worth of dinner, because we would either buy takeaway on the way home, or we would get home and we would just be too tired. We'd get home at like 6 o'clock, having picked the kids up from daycare, and then we'd have to get them changed, bathed, fed, and then we would either end up just giving up and giving them something really simple for dinner, which is still like, Lucas is happy to have like chopped up capsicums and a whole tomato and basically just raw vegetables. He's really happy to have that. But we want to be able to have more substantial meals, and then we weren't really eating. And Darcy was just having sachets. So the next habit we tried to break was doing the meal prepping for 1 month worth of dinners that were easy to defrost, reheat, and tasted really good. And that's been going really well so far. We were able to have risotto for dinner a few times this week. We've had our spaghetti sauces. The other day we defrosted some of the pulled pork and had pulled pork soft tacos. And then, because that was such an easy meal to have, the next day for lunch, Ben and I also had some pulled pork tacos for lunch. We're considering doing the pulled pork this week for burgers. So it's just really simple, easy, yummy, and healthy meals. So the next habit, which I'm now working on, is lunches. I'm really bad at purchasing lunches when I'm at work, and just yesterday we spent probably about $70 between lunch and then getting dinner and stuff on the drive home, and just lapsing into bad habits again because we were in a bit of a hurry. So the lunch was the most expensive. That was $50 at a cafe across the road from where we have our shop, and that could have easily been avoided by just having pre-made meals. So here I am today, even though I'm only doing the one meal. Asian dishes are one of my favorites, and so I'm making a lot of this so I can take it to work, and we will have lunches probably for, well, I'm not going to have it every single day, so this is probably going to be enough for a month, because another day I will bulk cook another meal that defrosts really well and tastes really good, probably some form of curry because I really like curry, or a laksa noodle soup defrosts really well. I particularly like Asian dishes for lunches because they will reheat really, really nicely and they taste really good. We could also do a pasta bake or a lasagna, but I do like that the stir-fry dishes are really quick to make as well. So the prep takes a little bit of time, but the actual cooking is really quick, and then we can make a bulk amount of them. Now I am going to put all these offcuts into a bag, and every time I cook I'm going to add to this bag so that when we do another stock cook up, the next one we'll do is probably with the beef bones we get with our cow water. I will have a bag full of stuff to chuck in from the freezer. Okay, so after we've prepped the meal, I'm now going to put some sesame oil in the bottom of the pan. I put a little bit more because we've doubled the recipe. Wait for that to get a bit hot, and then I'm going to add the onions and the carrots. So I want to cook down the onions and the carrots enough so that the carrots will be soft by the end of the dish for my son to be able to eat this dish as well. Just gonna test the oil. Definitely not ready yet. Okay. That's better sound. I'll get these started. If I wanted them to have some browning, I'd probably do them in 2 or 3 batches so there was less water content sweating out of them. But I don't mind that there's no browning, and I don't mind if they have a bit of water content and end up a bit mushy for what we're cooking. So then, while that is cooking away, we'll start putting the ingredients together for the sauce. Okay. So, get this sauce going. I don't know what's happened to all of our measuring spoons. I'm gonna have to order all new ones. So I'm just gonna have to be really good at guessing what an actual teaspoon and an actual tablespoon look like. So we're gonna start with 2 tablespoons of hoisin. There's my puppy playing in the background again. We'll have to add some videos at the end of little Nova, the Bichon that we've got. He's going to feature quite a fair bit in these videos when he grows up a bit, because he's going to be a show dog and a competition grooming dog. Alright, after that we want 4 tablespoons of oyster sauce. If I don't have enough oyster sauce, I'll just put in a bit more hoisin. One, 2, 3. I think we might just have enough sauce. I need to add, we usually have a shopping list that's on the fridge, and we'll write down on the fridge whenever we're running low on something or when we run out of something. So I'm just going to write that on this piece of paper here, that we need to buy not hoisin sauce, it was oyster sauce. Okay, and then we want 2 tablespoons of the Chinese cooking wine. And then 5 tablespoons of dark soy sauce. Sorry, that's normal soy sauce, because I don't think I'm going to have enough of the dark. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we do have enough. 5. And then I didn't get that out. We need some brown sugar. So I need, whoopsies, 4 teaspoons of brown sugar. Oh, these are so well. And then I'm gonna pop in a little bit of the sesame oil and some pepper. We don't put any salt because it's already got soy sauce. So about a teaspoon of that sesame oil. Just gonna stir that. Now this is definitely a larger bowl than I needed, but I can't find my smaller measuring jug. I have to do a bit of a order, I think, for some kitchen measuring stuff. Alright, just come back to check on these. There is a bit of browning because I wasn't stirring them, but that's absolutely fine. We do like the browning as well. So those carrots are starting to soften, but they haven't softened enough. But I will add in the zucchini now and start cooking that down. And so you can see here that by adding the vegetables, how much we have bulked this meal up from what the original recipe says. So there are a few changes in this recipe to suit more like what we prefer for our flavor profiles, as well as vegetable content, but it was a nice inspiration. I believe it's called Asian Meatball on Recipe Tin Eats. That's where we got the inspiration for this for. And then it has been altered slightly. We'll let that cook down for a little bit as well before I add in the meat. Okay, so the zucchini's been cooking for about 5 minutes. The carrots and onions probably 10 to 15, and now I'm going to add the beef mince. So this is 1 kilo of beef. And we have a mincing attachment for our KitchenAid. So when we get another beef, the whole half a cow order, we'll probably do some mince with some of the cuts that we decide not to use for slow cooking or roasting. Alright, this has been cooking for a couple of minutes. I'm going to add just a little bit of ginger. We do try to add ginger into as many meals as we can during the winter months so that we can help prevent against cold and flu, any little bugs, particularly since we have 2 kids that go to childcare. So I'll cook that in. There's about 2 teaspoons of ginger and about 5 teaspoons of garlic. And now the water content from the zucchini and the mince is really coming out, so it's starting to get quite liquidy in there, but that's all right. We're about to add the sauce, but if you wanted to cook down that garlic and ginger more like you were frying it and less like you were kind of boiling it, then I would put that in before, or probably when you add the zucchini. You don't want to put it in at the beginning with the onions because it'll overcook and possibly burn. Try to get into the habit of cleaning as I go as well, because things get really messy when doing cook-ups. So I put all the ingredients away as I use them. So that's probably cooked enough considering how wet this dish is at the moment anyway. It's probably going to boil as opposed to fry, so I'm going to add the sauce in. If you like this to be a little bit more liquidy, you can add some water. Or if you find that when you're reheating it from frozen and there's rice in there, you can add a little bit of water on top as well. I try not to add the sauce until I know that the beef is pretty much cooked through, because you can't really tell the color change of the beef once the sauce is on. So I'm not going to add any more water. You can see that this is pretty liquidy, so that's plenty for us. And then what we would normally do is we would serve this on rice. I'm going to serve my lunch on rice, but then I'm going to stir the rest of the brown rice into this dish, and then I could cook some additional rice up and mix it all in so it is combined when we put it into the freezer, and that way it will defrost better, rather than, I find sometimes rice doesn't really defrost as nice. Or I could just put this into packaged containers and defrost it just as is and cook the rice on the day. So I'm going to cook this down for just a minute or so and add the rice in. I do also prefer to add the brown rice in now, so that when I do serve the smaller portions for our 10-month-old, that he gets some brown rice in there too. I don't do that with the white rice with him. I prefer him to be eating the brown rice as it's healthier. So again, if I wanted to package this up to have had the right ratios of rice, I'd put more. Probably have added double or triple what rice I just put in just then. But this is just so it's got some rice in it for my son. And then on the day, we will cook up more rice. And that's how it looks all plated up.
Can we find the surprise?
There's a puppy. Hello. 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 It's so cute.